Hello, I'm Julia Roberts, and I'm happy to be talking with you. Wish I were there doing it in person, but that just didn't seem to work out this time. My topic to share with you is differentiation, which is something that I think about a lot, I write about a lot, and I provide professional learning opportunities on quite often. So, differentiation, as we talk about it, is looking at multiple strategies, but pretty much it's important to think of differentiation as a philosophy for teaching. It's looking at the opportunity for every child in a classroom to be learning new things on an ongoing basis. Each of you knows that to assume that every fourth grader, we call them fourth graders, let's say, children who are 8 years old are the same and that they would wear the same shoe size, the same jacket, and we know that absolutely is not the case. Likewise, with their learning, they're not ready to learn the same thing on the same schedule. Now, they might be ready, and we assume they are, to study the same topic or concept at the same time, but they aren't ready to do it at exactly the same place. And how do we find that out? We pre-assess the students. We find out what it is that they already know and are able to do. Of course, that can't be the first step. The first step has to be planning, that you're planning what it is you want students to know and to be able to do. Next step is to pre-assess. And of course, you can pre-assess in multiple ways. A very simple way to do that is to give students 3 to 5 minutes to write on the topic, what they know about it. And it's really easy. That doesn't take much time to look at those and to sort them out. Knows a lot about it, doesn't know much, has some information, but not enough to be in this category. And so as we pre-assess and learn what students are ready to do, then we know where to start with them. Let's use something that's pretty simple. If we're looking at teaching children to use fractions in math, and I know this is a science conference, but you do math as a scientist too. So if the student understands the basics of doing fractions, it really is pretty boring in order to get the initial instruction. Rather, it is so much better to divide into instructional groups for that segment of the teaching so that those students who need the basic instruction get us, and those who are ready to use fractions, perhaps look at decimals at the same time as they look at fractions, are ready to do that. As we think about the way that a gifted student thinks, sometimes we can equate that to being on a highway. And if you're moving along on the highway and you're allowed to move without much traffic, it's really easy, and learning can be that way when you differentiate instruction. But if you're in a traffic jam, and that means there are a lot of cars and it slows you down, that's what much instruction is often like for the gifted student. And we don't want to provide a traffic jam in thinking for those students. So, as we look at differentiating then, if every child is to learn new things on an ongoing basis, we call that continuous progress, ongoing learning. Advanced learners need to do that. Slower learners need to do that. But the instruction it takes for all learners to do that has to be differentiated. So after you know you've planned and you've pre-assessed, then that is the time that you can look at the learning opportunities you'll provide and differentiate those so that students who need to move along and think about issues and problems related to the concept are given the opportunity to do that. Let me give you an example. If you are studying genetics, there are basics to understanding genetics. Students who haven't done that need instruction in order to gain that understanding. Students who already got that in an earlier class or learning on their own are ready to look at issues and problems related to genetics. For example, they might be moving into looking at mutation of cells. They could be looking at issues such as cancer and how that all relates back to genetics. And of course, as we differentiate, those who have done the more advanced learning can share that back with the others so that in the long run, everyone can be introduced to issues and problems related to the content. So we differentiate learning experiences. This speaks to instructional grouping, putting together students who are ready to learn at particular levels so that instruction can be focused directly on them. Then let me talk about two other strategies that I think are often discussed in gifted education and that relate very closely to differentiating instruction. One of those is acceleration. And acceleration also includes differentiation. A book that has been translated into Arabic, A Nation Deceived, it talks about, I think, 17 types of acceleration. One of those, of course, is differentiation. Acceleration is something that our Center for Gifted Studies deals with in a couple of ways. One, we have a 3-week program in the summer that we call VAMPI, where students come and take one class, 6 hours a day, plus a study hall at night. And for these classes, they're taking a class earlier than they would in their high school, or maybe in lieu of an offering that would be at their high school. Another example would be the Gatton Academy, where students come as high school juniors and seniors, and instead of taking high school coursework, they take university courses and graduate from the Gatton Academy with a minimum of 60 hours of college credit. And in the United States, that would be 2 years of college work. So those are just examples of there are many other examples of acceleration. Another big area with differentiation and acceleration in gifted ed is enrichment. And enrichment may be offered within the school day, or it could be offered outside of school. And enrichment means that you take the content and you go deeper with it, go wider with it. You offer opportunities for the children to learn. An example of that through the Center for Gifted Studies might be our Super Saturdays offerings, where children who are in first grade through 8th grade have the opportunity to take a class 4 Saturdays in a row and to learn about something that they have not learned about or something that they're very interested in. Our summer camp, called Summer Camp for Academically Talented Middle School Students, or SCATS, is another opportunity for enrichment, for learning things that you're excited about learning. And please remember that as we differentiate, it is so important for students to be engaged in learning, and we like to call it minds-on learning, because if you're not thinking about the instruction, what you're learning, you probably won't remember it very long. Hands-on learning has been emphasized in the United States a great deal, And it is important. It is important to be involved in doing something, in conducting projects, doing research. But hands-on without the minds-on component doesn't really facilitate learning. It's just more doing. There is so much that I would love to tell you, and as I said, I'd love to be there face-to-face doing it with you, but this will have to work right now, and I hope this introduction, brief talk on differentiation is useful to you. Thank you, and enjoy your conference.